Thank you for tuning in to the Nola Experience podcast. Raw, honest, relatable conversations that help us grow. Be sure to follow us on all social platforms at the Nola Experience podcast and watch and listen to your favorite TNREP episodes on your favorite podcast platform.
On today's episode, the author of Conversations I Wish I Had, the Unspoken Stories of Men, Peter Burnett, is with us. I have a question. Did you know? The SOA Q&A, and of course, today's happy habit. Peter Burnett, I am so happy to have you here on the Nola Experience podcast. Thank you so much for hopping on this interview to talk about something that I feel and you feel, and a lot of people will agree is super important. And kind of wish that you were here having this conversation decades ago, because I mean, better late than never. But we have been, when I say we, I mean women, we have been asking men to open up and talk and share their feelings for the longest time. And that really, it hasn't happened because one, we have a very specific culture that we follow. The world tells us a lot of different ways that we should be. And then you came and you wrote a book, and you're starting to shift the dynamics in these conversations. So first of all, could you please introduce yourself and the name of your book?
Oh, hello. My name is Peter Burnett. I am now an author. The name of my book is Conversations I Wish I Had, the Unspoken Stories of Men. And it's a deeply personal book. It's meant a lot just to me, and I feel those who have had an opportunity to share in my story have also been impacted by it, and it's made a positive trend in terms of opening up and just building in relationships that we need to have.
Beautiful. I love it. Not only is this important for women, as I threw my experience in there, but it's also very important to men. And I know that there are moments when it's very important to be silent, and silence can be a very powerful thing, but there are moments when silence isn't the best option. There had to have been a moment when you realized that silence isn't necessarily a strength, but it could actually, in many situations, act like a prison. What was that moment for you?
I think that when silence stopped protecting me and started to feel like it was suffocating me, I felt like holding things in would make me strong. And as men, we want to be that pillar of strength, but there does come a time when you can't keep everything locked inside. And so I've always been the type to be the strong, silent type. However, being silent has had negative impacts on relationships, just in this realm that we're speaking of, because oftentimes you may feel, or I know I felt that not bringing certain topics up or different issues or things that may have bothered me, by not speaking on those things, that it was making everything all right. However, not being able to communicate, whether it's the good or the bad, that can also lead to negative effects in relationships, not just in a romantic sense, but it could also be with a family member. It could be on your job. It could be with your children, your friends. And there's definitely power in speaking and communicating, again, not just when someone's doing a good job, but when there's areas of improvement.
I love that. I love that. And There is something, I love that you said an area of improvement, because I remember reading something and also hearing people say, you need to make sure you're okay, and you need to make sure that you're healed, and you need to make sure that you've got all the bases covered before you get into a relationship. And in that moment, I felt like, I don't think so. I strongly believe that we learn ourselves in relationships. And if there's something about somebody that's not working, if they have a way of being that's not working, or they do something that just either irks you or it impacts their environment in a negative way, sometimes letting them know that thing helps them become a better person. It actually
Yeah,
helps them build character. So you might be saying, I don't want to say this because it might hurt their feelings, but that piece of information could make that person that much more powerful. So
right.
I love that you said that. Yeah, thank you for saying that. So I've had this experience, like I said, and I wanted to know, why do you believe, because you're a man, right?
I am.
Men would rather die inside than to say, I'm hurting. It seems so simple. It seems like two words, right? I'm hurting. It seems like this very simple thing to relay and do, but holding the pain inside and suffering inside and dying inside seems, it makes sense that you would choose the simpler thing than the bigger thing. But it seems like for many men, the speaking and the opening up and the vulnerability and saying I'm hurting is actually the bigger, harder thing. Why do you think that is?
I think because as men, we want to be quote unquote Superman. And you all as women, you want a Superman. You don't want a average man. You don't want a mediocre man, a weak man. And so as men, we want again to be that pillar of strength. We don't want to communicate and announce our kryptonite. We don't want to go out and start talking and saying the things that may be those areas of weakness. Superman wasn't running around saying, "Hey, this is what's going to make me weak." It had to kind of be discovered and put out there. However, again, as men, we oftentimes we see that we feel that vulnerability um, makes us weak, and that's not exactly true. There is strength in vulnerability. Oftentimes, however, it takes different situations and different things that happen that occur in our lives to where we come to that realization that it's okay to communicate that, hey, this does bother me. I am hurting. I need help. The things that we just don't want to say. And oftentimes it could be our pride that gets in the way. But I also have learned and know that pride only hurts, it never helps. I mean, we definitely want to be able to communicate when we have issues, because if we don't, it kind of goes back to what you're saying earlier. If there's a area of improvement that we see in our friend, our partner, our child, whoever, they don't know to fix it if it's not communicated to them. And if you don't communicate to them, then they may have the fallacy in their mind that they're doing everything perfect, when meanwhile, that's not the case. And it's part of growth, it's part of development to be able to communicate these again, when you're in pain, when you're not feeling your best, when you feel weak, especially when you're dealing with people that you love, people who have a strong relationship with you. And I think we misapply that, especially again when it comes to the people that we care about. It's okay to let them know, hey, I'm not doing so well in this area, or I'm hurting, or something of that nature. Of course, if you have an adversary, somebody who's not on your side, then you don't want to be vulnerable with them because they're going to use that against you. But we oftentimes take that mentality of everybody's against me, the world's against me, and we apply that to across the board. And that definitely has a negative impact on our various relationships.
Yeah, yeah, and I can totally see why a lot of men would think that the world is against them, because in some ways it is, right? But I think, as a person, and I'm not gonna speak about this as a woman, as a person, right? I came from a culture, not just community, but also family and friends, the culture within family and the culture within friendships, where I wasn't really encouraged to cry and be emotional. And I remember being a grown woman in my 30s and expressing to my friends that I had an experience and I cried, and they were like, "You cried?" And I feel like this is going to live in my head forever because their reaction opened something up for me. Why are these people surprised that I cried?
Mm.
When I'm a crier, I cry for every little thing. I realized that, oh, they just don't see it. I just don't show it to them. And I'm only imagining having to hold that in the way men have to when I experienced so much pain. And quick story as well, within the last 9 months or so, I walked away from a very prominent business. And I remember saying, and I knew nobody would understand, I feel in my body like I'm not going to be okay. My body feels like this is gonna end up real bad. And people don't understand that side of it. They want to see you keep going and grinding and being strong and doing all the things. And we see people dropping dead all the time. We see
Yeah,
people taking their lives, and then we're like, what happened? What? But they told you. Some of these people have tried, because I've had this experience where I said, I'm not okay. I've been crying. I'm
hmm,
struggling. And we find that people don't know how to deal with it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you're super vulnerable and transparent, and you tell somebody about this soft part of you, and they don't even react. They
right,
want to either back away because now I have to deal with your problems. Maybe that's what it is, or they back away because we don't even know how to deal when people start being open and vulnerable. It's uncomfortable.
right.
So, as someone who is embarking or embarked on this journey of transparency and vulnerability, and having these conversations, how are you as a listener? And how are you as a listener? And what would you tell people in terms of listening when someone is vulnerable and open with them?
Well, personally, it's kind of, I guess, part of I guess my strength is that I've often been someone who has listened to other people's problems. And so I've been able to kind of absorb that in a way, and been able to kind of be that rock that people can lean on, the person that is not going to get too high, not going to get too low, be even keeled, and provide a balanced perspective. Um, However, as I guess just going through life and going through different experiences, I've also been in the position now, especially lately, to where now I'm being more vulnerable and sharing the things that are bothering me. And I have come across people who, because again, being vulnerable is a risk. You're taking a risk that you're sharing your whatever's going on with you, and that the person that you're sharing that with is going to be receptive and is not going to judge you, is not going to criticize you, is going to, even just if they don't have anything to say, just listen. Because some, like you said, some people just may not even want to listen because they don't want to take on your burdens on their shoulders. Even though you're not really asking that, you're just really just trying to express yourself. And so in my journey, I've found that everybody you can't do that with. And I've definitely experienced that, to where there's people who I know I can call them up right now and they're going to be able to listen. They're going to be able to give me wise counsel, and it's going to help to build me up. But I've also found that people who I've been vulnerable with, they didn't have the best advice. And so, or they didn't have the best perspective, or just weren't helpful at all, even to the point to where I felt like they may have tried to weaponize it against me. And that's also a fear. And so it is it's a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing because again, it's a risk in terms of you have to also have that discernment in terms of who can I go to. You have to kind of weigh, what is my relationship with this person? Are they somebody who I feel like I can have these types of conversations with, or should I not even bring it up? Should I give surface level answers? And so it's a lot that goes on, and depending upon your level of I don't want to say maturity, but it could be your where your emotions are, because when you're emotional, you may also feel like you may have to overshare or anything like that. And so you also want to do a self-assessment in terms of, where am I personally? Am I in a good mental space to be able to have these types of conversations, and kind of go from there? But definitely in terms of listening, you want to be able to be receptive to somebody. It's almost like you have to kind of, if somebody comes to you with their situation, you have to almost take yourself out of it, and you have to really listen for them. You have to be there for them. And if there's an opportunity to share your own personal perspective, then allow that to happen. But you want to make sure that you're holding space for that person, and vice versa. If you're discussing something with somebody, you want to feel like you are in a safe environment to where you can share your perspective, and you don't feel like you're going to be judged or it's going to be used against you. So it's definitely it's an area of growth for all parties involved, and it's always evolving. So that's, to answer your question, that's how I feel about that.
I like that you said area of growth. I love that, because we are telling people to talk and we are telling people to open up. But when you're in the thick of things and you're going through it, it's so difficult, especially if you were already not a talker. And then you finally talk and you don't get the response that you were hoping for. It is an area of growth, because you now, in all the darkness and whatever it is that you're going through, you now have to figure out, how am I going to continue to seek support even though I feel discouraged in that moment, in this moment? And I think that's the key right there. A lot of us open up to people, and like you said, they weaponize our experiences, they'll judge us, but figuring out how to keep going, oh my goodness. And I hope that somebody who's listening to this right now or watching this gets this message, that that experience isn't the only experience there is.
Right.
You got to somehow keep going, because you do need the support. Go get it.
And that's I'm glad you said that too, because oftentimes you can feel like, okay, I had a bad experience here, and then you use that as a paintbrush and paint your whole canvas with that experience, and that's not the case. There's so many people in this world, and everybody's not the same. You're not going to have the same experience with everyone. Um, and again, it kind of goes back to that risk. You have to be willing to take that risk that the other person is genuinely a good person, um, and allow that to transpire. And I also want to go back to something that you said earlier about how people feel like you have to be completely healed and whole before you enter into relationships and things of that nature. And I'm on your side in terms of that that's not entirely the case, because we're all works in progress. And so we're not always going to stay the same. We're always going to have opportunities for growth. And I feel like it's definitely a shame when, if there is a situation to where an individual might make a mistake or fall short, to where the other person just paints them in that picture that they're always going to be that same way, and doesn't allow room for growth. And then that's also where you kind of have to take an assessment on the relationship, because if somebody's willing to just keep you stuck in one area, then that relationship's not going to grow. And so it's important to be able to um, have that discernment in terms of who you're dealing with, and are you in community with people who are going to allow you to grow. Because again, we're all works in progress. Although there are some people who are set in their ways, even those people who are set in their ways, it's not over for them. It's not over for them. They, at some point, they may be faced with a situation where they have to change their way of thinking about something. Even though worst person that you know, they still have, as long as they have breath in their lungs, they have an opportunity to change. So that's my 2 cents on that.
I love your 2 cents. I love your 2 cents. And I also, for the people who need encouragement, share that keep in mind that everybody is not equipped to process information in a healthy way. Some
Yeah,
people,
we're all on different levels.
yeah, and some people are trained for that. Some people, this is what they've gone to school for, and they're trained to listen. Not everybody you know can listen. Listening is a very specific thing. We think listening is hearing, right?
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
listen, there are levels to it. Not everybody knows how to listen. Not everybody can react the way you want them to, and you have to also give them grace the way you're looking for grace. You have to
Yes.
give people grace and understanding, okay, they're not equipped to do this with me, and that's okay.
And
That's
I'm
okay.
glad you said that about hearing and listening, because I know I've definitely been in situations to where I thought I was listening, but I was only hearing. And again, there's definitely a difference. You can hear all day, but did you really listen? And are you listening to be of assistance, or are you listening just to respond? Are you hearing just to respond? So there's definitely different levels, and it takes a growth mindset, because there are people who, oh yeah, I was listening, no, you were just listening to get your 2 cents in. You were listening just to talk back. But were you listening because you want to come to a solution with your husband, with your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your child? Or are you listening for a solution, or are you just listening so that you can get your little point off? And so it's definitely levels to it.
Yeah, and it's so funny that we want to be heard, but we don't always listen,
Mm.
right? I feel like I know for sure, I'm telling you right now, I'm one of those people, if I'm talking and I realize I'm not being heard, I don't want to talk anymore. That's me. If I repeat one time, two times, three times, and I'm like, oh, you're not hearing me, I'm not gonna want to talk anymore. I will shut down and listen. It's probably not the healthiest way of being, but we want to be heard. And if you want people to open up and talk to you, you also have to be a person who opens up and talks. I know I'm not going to feel comfortable coming to you if I don't know anything about you. Like, I realize every time we sit down and we have a conversation, it's always about me. You're very vague about what you share about yourself. So, a lot of times the thing that we want, we can't get those things because we're not being those things. So also for the people, if you're out there and you feel like nobody talks to me, nobody lets me in, maybe you don't talk to people either. Maybe you're not vulnerable either. So Peter, can I ask you a personal question?
Ask me a personal question.
Don't worry, it's not crazy. So, are you open to sharing a very specific moment in a relationship where you kind of held things in and you held back and you didn't want to share, and then you decided to just go for it, even though you were fearful, and instead of breaking you, it actually made you more powerful?
That's a good question. So a very hmm, you know, I don't I and that's I'll just be honest, that's my area of improvement because there's definitely been things that I have been reluctant to express and share that I didn't. And so that's kind of what led into the book conversations I wish I had, because there's definitely areas that I observed, and for the sake of keeping the peace, I held my peace and thinking everything's going to be okay, and then eventually it wasn't okay. So definitely, that's something that I strive to work on. So sorry I can't answer the question, but that's my answer to the question.
Well, you answered it. You answered it. You're honest. You said, listen, this is my work area and I'm aware of it and improving on it. So are you a dad?
I am a father. Yes, I am. Dad,
Um,
father, daddy, all that good stuff. I
and obviously you're a son.
am a son.
So how much of a man's identity, in your opinion, do you feel gets wrapped up in these relationships? And when I say wrapped up in these relationships, meaning how we feel like, how men feel like they need to show up as a father, how you feel like you need to show up as a son, and also clarifying, are you separate from a father and a son? Are you someone different? Are those two different roles, or are you those things? I don't know if that question makes sense.
It makes sense, and my situation is a little bit, I guess, not unique, but because my parents are deceased, and so the role of son is, I guess, it's not as present, but father definitely, father. The second that I found out I was going to be a father, my whole mindset changed. So it's definitely a big part of it's a massive part of who I am. I take that role incredibly seriously, and it's just when I feel as a man, when you are the father to someone, your whole mindset has to shift. You can't focus on yourself anymore. You have to be forward thinking. You have to be thinking in a definitely a community, a family perspective. You have to think about your next step. How is this going to impact my child? And so you have to have that consideration. You have to prioritize them. And I know oftentimes I've definitely made decisions not even considering myself. And that definitely becomes part of it's definitely a part of my identity. And if I had to just introduce who I am again, I am a father, I'm a brother, son, I'm an educator, professional bodybuilder, an author. So all those different roles, but father is way at the top of the list. So definitely, it's definitely a part of um, my identity. And I feel like any man who's worth his weight is going to heavily identify with being a father because they want to be able to make that impact for their child. They want to be able to, again, pass along their knowledge, their strength, their wisdom to their son, their daughter to hopefully make the world a better place.
And that's what it is, right? We're passing our goodness.
Yes.
Hope that it sticks.
Yeah, you definitely pray and hope. And I know that my daughter, she amazes me every single day. She's definitely more than I prayed for. It's it's amazing. She's amazing.
Well, I definitely want to say sorry to hear about your parents. And also hearing that your child is a daughter, I suspect that vulnerability happens very differently because it's a girl. Is that true?
Yeah, and that's also an evolving process because again, I'm still a man first and foremost, and you don't want to present any type of weakness, especially for my little girl. I don't want her to see me in any type of weak light. However, kids pick up on things. They're very, especially my child, she's very observant, and so she's definitely seeing like, you know what, Dad, like something's not right, something's not okay, and so that opened an opportunity for me to be vulnerable with her to let her know, you know what, Dad's been putting on a mask, but you're right. That's not okay. And here's why. Here's what's going on with Dad. And it's definitely an evolution because back to again, yes, first and foremost, I am a son. My parents are no longer here, but the things that they instilled in me, I carry forward and instill in my daughter. However, in terms of vulnerability, I also come from a culture where that's not a thing, especially my
I see
father.
your
Yes,
flag in the back.
see the flag in the back, and so no, it's not. It's not a whole bunch of men sitting around sharing their feelings or anything like that. Definitely not getting vulnerable. If yeah, talking about if I seeing my dad cry, the next time I see will be the first time I see. And since he's no longer here, I never saw him cry. Never, not once. And so something like that is deeply impactful. Him expressing, I love you, son. Didn't say it. I knew he did, but we weren't just sitting around sharing feelings, hugging and kissing and all that stuff. No, that wasn't a thing. And so, however, being a father to a daughter, I can't be, or I feel like I definitely can't be just this hard rock all the time. I have to love on her and hug her and kiss her and share and be open because I don't want to have any walls. I don't want her to be walled off. So it's an evolution in that process. So definitely being the father to a daughter has shifted my mindset because I think to myself all the time, if I had a son, this would be a whole different ball game. Way different.
And that's so interesting. That you okay, so first before I get into that, let me just say I dated a guy and we were about to go on vacation. We went to see his mom. I think he needed to pick up luggage or something like that. And as we were leaving, he was just like, all right. And we walked out. And I was like, you're not gonna hug your mom? You're not gonna kiss your mom and say bye? He was like, his reaction was surprise, like, why?
Mm.
And this is so long ago, but it stays with me. Because now I'm sitting in the car driving with him thinking, and then I'm from Guyana. Majority of my friends outside of Guyanese are Jamaicans.
Mhm.
And I do see that where it doesn't happen a lot. I am seeing more of it now because people are evolving and are more accepting of different ways of being. But for a long time, I did observe that those emotions and that vulnerability and the hugging and the kissing and the positive reinforcements were just not there. And that was very shocking to me. I'm like, you didn't hug your mom? That's crazy.
See, like with my mom, there was no problem. Hug, kiss, all that stuff. Very, it's just different, I guess, because it's mother son. But again, my dad, nah. And we were just going, hey, let's go to work. It was like that.
Yeah, yeah, I get that. And I see it all the time. But what you're also instilling in your daughter is if she's in relationship with someone, she will know that, oh, something is going on with you. and potentially not accept being blocked out or being closed out, and potentially speaking up and asking for openness and transparency, because my dad talked to me about his feelings and I saw and felt how impactful that was. I'm not going to have you sit here and be passive aggressive and weird with me, and I know for sure something is going on with you. So I think there's a possibility that that is instilled in her. What do you think?
I definitely hope and pray so, because that's a key thing that you just mentioned is passive aggressiveness. Is I feel that oftentimes because of a lack of emotional maturity or development, that people do engage in these passive aggressive behaviors as opposed to taking the quote unquote confrontation head on and having it could be those uncomfortable conversations. And that's definitely important in terms of not being weird, not avoiding issues and building walls in that manner. So it's very important to me that I hope that she definitely sees the value in communicating how she feels, again, in the good and the bad, because we all want positive reinforcement. And I don't want to call it negative reinforcement or problems, but there's opportunities to come up with solutions to different challenges that we all may come across again in relationships. And I feel like a lot of times people frame situations as problems and in a negative light instead of just being challenges that are there to overcome. And it could be communication, it could be affection, it could be quality time with somebody, it could be, hey, I don't like the way you fold towels, I don't like the way you wash this. It's just different things that if we just take the time to come up with solutions to the situation, then we can overcome any challenge. Again, as long as you're dealing with somebody who you feel like they have a growth mindset, that they are willing to change, because that's also a thing. Yes, everybody has the opportunity to develop and be better, but there are people who they would rather cling to a problem mindset. They don't have a growth mindset. And so it's often important that if you're with somebody and they listen to you and they express that they are willing to do the work to improve the situation, then there's definitely opportunity to show them grace and to continue to build and to work on um, growing together and building together.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to add to it, I would also say that I'm speaking for myself here, and I'm not saying that when you open up and when you're vulnerable, you're going to always run into people like this. But with me, if you are raw and open and transparent, it gives me an opportunity to understand what I'm dealing with. It gives me an opportunity to support you better. But if you're not saying anything, but it's obvious something is happening, then it creates confusion. And I know this is happening in relationships where there might be something happening with you and the energy is showing up in the relationship and people around you are like, what's going on? They might be backing away from you because your energy is off and your energy might be disruptive. But I do find that in many situations, of course, not all, we're not going to be naive. When you are open about what's going on with you, people will show up and support you. And you might be surprised that by telling people, hey, I have this thing going on, all of a sudden a resource shows up or somebody offers to help you. And I think that is often overlooked. And for the person who's overlooking it, I'm telling you that that's a possibility because I experience it all the time.
I agree with you. And I can speak from personal experience that oftentimes I was silent about things because I didn't want to burden anybody with, or feel like I was burdening anybody with my quote unquote problems or my situations. And I just wanted to handle everything on my own. And oftentimes, again, that's silence. There's a high cost to that silence. And just like you said, simply by communicating that could have opened up all kinds of doors to whether it be resources, whether it just be somebody who is just lending an ear. Because just kind of like what you said, if you're in a situation and somebody's not communicating, then it kind of pushes you away and you may feel isolated and just it brings confusion. And when simply just by communicating could prevent all that. And again, we're trying to forge bonds, and that silence, it just causes separation. And so I can definitely speak to that myself. And it's something that, again, so it's a growth opportunity for myself to continue to express different areas where I may feel like I may need assistance in whatever area it could be. Again, it could just be, hey, I just need you to listen and see what you think about the situation. And I think that's it's an area of personal growth for me. And I know a lot of men could definitely benefit from taking that kind of mindset and not taking the world on by themselves.
Yeah, and I can tell you an area of growth for me as well, as a woman in a relationship, and not just romantic, but definitely people who are close to me. If your vibe is off, or there's any kind of passive aggression or anything that's out of the norm, I don't know how to gracefully maneuver that and say, oh, that has nothing to do with me. I am going to automatically on the inside start wondering, is this about me? Like, what's happening here? Did I do something? And a lot of times when we inquire, it's because of our own insecurities. We're wondering, did I say something wrong? Did I do something wrong? How am I being that's affecting you? And I'm not saying that's the correct way to be, because I know it would be way more powerful if I was able to see you going through your thing and say, I'm not taking that on until you offer it to me. I'm aware that that's a possibility. Am I able to do it yet? No. That's my growth area as well. I'm working to that. But um, not blaming anyone, but also making people aware that when you affect your environment in a negative way, there are people in the room who are confused and feeling like it has something to do with them, or feeling like they might be hurting you, when really it's just, oh, somebody said something to you at work that, you know, that's still on your mind. It has nothing to do with your kids, nothing to do with your wife, nothing to do with your siblings, but they're experiencing the brunt of your emotions in that way. So
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that as well. And I think again, the passive aggressiveness can create confusion, and to where again you feel like, hey, this applies to me. And so it takes a from I guess the outsiders, the person who's I guess being subject to the passive aggressiveness, they have to be able to not take it personal and kind of remove themselves from the situation and kind of take a macro view of things. It's like you said, hey, this isn't about me until they bring it to me, really, because there could be a variety of factors. It's like driving on the freeway. Somebody cuts you off. You don't know if they're having a bad day. They may have just got fired from their job or whatever. Their kids flunking in school. They have to go to school because their kid's not acting up. So all kinds of stuff could be happening. So it may not necessarily be about you. And so it kind of brings the focus back in on yourself. Like, what can I do to control what I can control? And I know it's easier said than done because we're all human and we a lot of times, and I know myself included, I take things personal. So it's like we don't want to take everything personal. And so it's important to um, try to take a bigger view of things.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm hearing you, and there's so much insight. And I know that insight can be cerebral, insight can be intuitive. A lot of times we know better, like I just expressed. I know what my power could be, but am I embodying that? But it seems to me like you had to have embodied a lot of these perspectives to pour it into a book. Was there a moment when you had to pivot what was there an isolated situation that made you feel like I need to start my healing, or was it more of a collection of experiences?
It's definitely an ongoing process, but I think just the relationship that kind of led to the creation of this book is kind of what led to me really reflecting on where I can improve because obviously, again, we're all works in progress. And so I have done a lot of reflecting in how can I just be a better man? Where am I falling short? Um, what can I do to improve going forward? And so that's kind of the genesis behind everything. And it's something that I carry with me daily, and I'm definitely just so more aware. That's like the number one word. I'm just so much more aware of how I operate in just various capacities, various relationships. Am I really being an active listener? Am I really showing up the way I want to show up? Not just showing up for the sake of I'm here, but is the other person feeling seen and heard? And again, because you mentioned it earlier, we all want to feel like we're being heard. We all want to feel like we're being seen. And I'm definitely doing my best to be more active in that regard to um, just show up more fully and just just being better.
So being better and healing, it's not always the easiest place to get to, especially when we've experienced a lot, when we've experienced a lot of trauma. But I'm imagining that writing this book opened up a lot of wounds for you.
It
Or,
did.
or I know it couldn't have been easy breezy, just, oh, this happened. Let me just write it down.
I don't know. It was, I mean, the wounds were still open. They were very fresh. So, and that was kind of part of coming to the realization that I can't keep everything bottled up. And so it became kind of an outlet to kind of get some of my thoughts out and again to kind of show, okay, what are some areas that I can grow in? And you know what? Not only is it just a personal thing for me, but I cannot be the only person that's ever gone through this. And so as I started to write and I started to kind of share and be vulnerable with people who I feel like I could trust, and they started to express situations that they had gone through, that's when I was like, what? Like, especially again, when I'm speaking to some of my best male friends and talking to them and they're sharing their experiences. And I'm just thinking like, dude, why did you never talk to me about this? And they share the same struggles as far as feeling like they had to take everything on their own. I said, like, this can't be like we can't just be just doing this and just living life on our own because at no point in creation has it been good for man to be alone. You can go back to Genesis. It's not good for man to be alone. We're designed to have community. We're designed to have partnership, and so we have to be able to share, especially when when you have people who you consider to be friends, family, brothers, sisters. You have to be able to lean on them in that regard. And so as I start to have these conversations with my friends, it branched out from there into how can I use my voice that I have been reluctant to use in different capacities? How can I use my voice to um, make an impact? And so that's how the book developed, and it started out just from the personal experiences that shaped me, and experiences that there's again other men have gone through things have they've gone through divorce, they've gone through grief in terms of loss of loved ones, they've gone through uh, heartbreak from relationships, they've dealt with being fathers and friends and everything, and so that's kind of how the book kind of developed from there.
You mentioned community, which is, I think, many of us, when we are community, we think of this external thing, this thing that's over there that you
Hmm.
just go to and come out of, when really community could be very intimate, and it could be very impactful if you're open to it. And when you're truly in it and you are open and honest and transparent, all of a sudden it's me too. Oh my gosh, yes, I'm experiencing that too. But we are actively walking around with energies and emotions and traumas in our body that's breaking our organs down. People are literally getting sick from carrying these old things. And I'm hearing you say that, you're you're letting it out. You're multiple times you've said like you're releasing, letting things out. And I really want to drive that message home and have that message resonate, that the holding in is what's speeding up our journey towards the end. And the release is not just healing for us emotionally, but physically.
That's a,
And it's healing other people too. It's giving people permission to heal as well. So I love that you said, I'm talking to my friends now. I am opening up. And there's another thing that men are doing. I mean, everybody's doing it, right? But we're talking about men today. The attention and the nurturing and the love is about men today. And we have a lot of men who are, chasing money and chasing what their idea of success and status is. Um, and you can sometimes look at them and see like, yeah, you have the car and you have the money, but when we connect and we have a conversation, the substance might not really be there. So what is it that's underneath the chasing and the accumulation of all of these things? What do you think?
it's distraction. It's because you just kind of hit the nail on the head. Um, if you, I can speak personally, if you don't have that right person by your side, then all that other stuff is meaningless because it's just stuff. Um, being in relationship, again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic relationship, just but when you have your friends, you can have your children, again, when you have somebody who cares about you by your side, those things mean that much more. It's that much more to be able to go on vacation with your friends and to share in that good time than it is to just be by yourself and you're just posting pictures for the gram because who cares about, they don't care. They're just looking and seeing what the highlights and going off of that. But on the inside, that person could be going through who knows what, but they're just trying to put on the front. So yeah, we want to have personal ambition. We want to strive and do the best that we can in all that we do. However, what is it ultimately for? Are we just trying to accumulate things that we can't take with us, or are we trying to have a life of substance that makes an impact on those around us? And we can. There's so many examples that we can look at of people who have everything, but you hear these stories, and internally they're lacking, and it's pretty bad. And so I would I would rather live modestly, but have the substance of the ones that I love around me versus having the world and losing my soul. And again, we're seeing that on a daily basis, and it's sad, but um, there's still hope. And but it just depends on everybody kind of locking in and doing what they can to not just go after those trinkets, but definitely, as you mentioned, people feeling like they have to get lost in their job title or get the car or get the money and all these different things. Yeah, those things are great to have. Don't get me wrong, because we all want to have nice things. But again, are we wrapping our identity up in these things, or do we have substance to go along with those things? And then when those things are taken away, what are we left with? So we want to have a foundation that's worth something.
Whew, what are we left with? Hmm. Yeah, I I've seen it. seen and it could be a conversation, right? You go out on a date with this beautiful woman or this man, and you saw all the things, especially if it's social media.
Mhm.
You mentioned you're doing it for the gram, so we create this perception, and then you meet this person and you start having a conversation. You're like, hold on, wait, I thought. So it is a dangerous thing, but again, we want to be seen, and we want to be loved, and we want to be accepted. So I'm also curious to know, speaking of having things and being seen, in my experience, and I'm sure you've probably, I don't know if you've experienced this personally or if you've just seen it, for some men, it kind of seems like something drastic has to happen for them to have that shift or that pivot. It's either, oh my gosh, my woman left me, or I lost all my things.
Yeah, I'm part of that club. Something drastic had to happen for me to really make a mind shift. And unfortunately, um, that's often the case to where it takes a massive paradigm shift, some massive event that causes uh, men to have to sit down and say, you know what, something's got to give, something's got to change because the way things are going, this can't continue, or it's going to get worse, or it's going to continue to, the same thing's going to keep happening over and over again. And so it's it sucks that it has to be that way, but as long as that man, I know for myself, I have a growth mindset, and I don't want to just be stuck in just the mistakes, the perceived failures. I want to continue to grow and progress and achieve and be better. And so, yes, sometimes those events occur, and then they kind of force you to sit down and really evaluate. And again, I just point back to just examples in the Bible, like Joseph. Joseph was sold by his brothers into slavery. He had to really sit back and reflect and focus on, okay, will I just be trapped in this moment, or does God have something greater in store for me? And God had something great in store for Joseph. And so that's just one example of something terrible happening that was used for the greater good. And there's so many different examples. Again, I just lean on the word for that. But I could fast forward again to myself. Like, do I just want to stick to the things that could have broken me, or will those things build me into something greater? And I choose to be greater, and I choose to progress and move forward. And I know that's been the case for a lot of men, to where they could have just crumbled and fell. They could have fallen from grace and had negative things happen to them and just stayed there. But they've made the decision, they made the choice, and they've been active in rebuilding and doing what they needed to do to not be stuck in that moment. And so, yes, it's sad and it's a shame that it takes big events to happen like that. But it's also, there's beauty in that. There's beauty that there is redemption, and there's ways to improve.
Mm, I love that. We are all responsible for what's happening, men, women, everybody. This is not oh, look at what women do. Oh, it's because women are doing this. Oh, look at what men do. It's because of the way you guys are, why we're like this. I feel like we're all responsible. And I see women actively raising their sons a certain way and condoning things that we would never condone with our daughters. And I remember thinking, I was very young having this thought that, we're telling girls, have one boyfriend, go to school, get your education, just focus on this one person, be a good girl. And we're telling boys, play the field, don't worry about them girls, focus on your career, your education. And I wonder what happens when that boy and that girl meet each other. Like, what does that relationship look like? And obviously often reflected every day, everywhere. We see this confusion. We don't know what to do with each other. And I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts and what would you tell society about how we're raising boys? Because it feels like we're raising boys to be providers or whatever these things are first before they're humans. What would you say to mothers and fathers, society as a whole?
That's a whole other show right there because it's the it's just wild. So many messages are being bombarded, not just on our kids, but on our adults as well. And it's so many things that are thrown out there. Um, in terms of the things that a young man should be, I guess, focused on in terms of, I guess, am I answering that correctly in terms of relationships?
Yes,
So,
because we're it seems like we're raising boys to be providers and we're raising them to be a certain type of protector. Like there's this toxic masculinity as opposed to raising them to just be humans.
and that's the thing too, is that that's like a term that's just turned into it's a weaponized thing, toxic masculinity. Because when do we ever hear of toxic femininity? We don't hear the opposite. And it's almost
I'm gonna send you my podcast episode about toxic femininity.
yeah, I need to catch that because it's not something it's not referred to often at all.
Yeah.
But in terms of, like you said, the type of provider, that also goes into the different things you see, especially when we look at social media. When what does it mean to be a provider? Does it mean it's again, I could just go down a whole rabbit hole right there. But I think just a young man should, in terms of just they they have to provide for themselves first and foremost. They have to know how to sustain themselves before they can think about sustaining anybody else. They have to have a firm foundation for themselves. They have to know what they want in life. They have to have goals, aspirations, things that they want to achieve. Um, I wouldn't even talk about playing the field because personally, I've never been a play the field type of person. Um, I wouldn't talk about anything about playing the field, but I want to put the focus back on the young man. Hey, if you have if you have everything in line, you're going to eventually come across someone who's going to align with that path. And you also, again, you want to build something with that person. It's going to be natural for you to want to include them in your world because you're secure in yourself, you've got your foundation, and if they've shown that they're aligned with you, then you're going to build towards something together. And naturally, you're going to want to do what it takes to provide. And it doesn't necessarily, because I think a lot of times when we talk about providing, it's say you're just it's a financial thing, but providing could come in emotional support. It could be come in as spiritual support, somebody that you're praying with and praying for and praying over. So there's different levels of provision that are often neglected in the society today when the focus is only on the things, it's only on the stuff. And again, you can't take the stuff with you, so you want to have the substance. So I guess redefining what it means to provide would be a conversation to have with a young man as well. And protecting, naturally, you want to be that that pillar of strength, and so you're going to want to protect your loved one from any harm and danger, and do what you can to put them in the best position possible. So those are different various um, topics and areas to discuss with a young man who is just navigating life.
Yeah, I love that they're hearing this. I love that they have the opportunity to get this message. Hopefully, they use it in whatever way they will, because, you know, the gap between having leaders and people that we look up to in our communities, it's getting wider and wider. And I can say for a woman, a lot of the women I had access to growing up, they were too busy trying to figure it out, and also trying to look a certain way as opposed to being the pillar and being the source and potentially being a resource when it comes to counseling. And that's happening with young men as well. It seems like a lot of them are on their own. So having someone like you who, you say you're doing the work and you are putting out literature that people can refer to for guidance. I think this is so, so important. So I want to commend you for being that, because it's so necessary and so needed and very much missing. I'm curious to know, what do you think there's one conversation that everyone should have before it's too late?
Um, that conversation um is gonna vary in terms of, I guess, the subject matter, because we all have, I guess, different areas of concern or different challenges that we have to face. Um, I think the main thing is to have the attitude and to have the willingness to start to have that conversation, to not feel that we can't be vulnerable. Um, Again, just with the people that we love. Uh, we want to find out, what can we do to continue to make this relationship improve? What are the areas that um, might be challenges for us? What do we want to build towards? There's just different things that can be discussed, but I think fundamentally, just being able to have the willingness to have that conversation and to have the courage, because I understand that it's a risk to kind of put yourself out there. But if you have the willingness and you have the love, you love the other person. And again, I'm using that. It could be not just in a romantic sense, but you love your friend, you love your child. Just to be able to keep that at the center of everything, then everything else should be able to flow from there. But the the foundation should be the love, the willingness to grow, and also the willingness to pick up the other person when they may be falling, and to be there for each other, just to know that you're on the same path, you're on the same team. You shouldn't feel like you're um you want to win over the other person, that they lose, and that if you lose, they like, everybody should be on the same. You should win together. And if you lose together, but you don't stay lost. You figure it out. You figure out a solution to the situation, and you overcome the challenge, and just continue to go forward.
It sounds like the major key in there is willingness. You have to first be willing. Yeah, and uh, the courage and leaning on your love for your people. Um, so if there is a young man or young men who look at you and learn how to be a man, and learn, if they learn masculinity from you, not your words, but your actions, what would they learn about being a man?
Through my actions, never give up. Be resilient. Um, there are going to be times in life when it feels overwhelming, and that's part of life. However, allow nothing to overwhelm you. And I think I feel like I've been an example of all types of hardships that I've faced and continue to push through, continue to overcome. There's a thing that I saw where we've survived 100% of our worst days. As long as we're still here, we're still pushing through. So yesterday could have been the worst day of your life, but here we are today. It's a new day. It's a new opportunity to get it right, to make things better. Um, and it may not necessarily be losses that we've experienced, but those losses can be lessons, and try to learn from the different experiences that we've gone through in order to be better. And I think that just seeing my actions, the things that I've done to kind of, again, show that I don't want to be stuck in a loser mentality. I want to continue to progress and to achieve. Um, Again, just being vulnerable. Writing this book is something that's, I would have never in a million years thought I was going to write a book like this, but it happened. And it's created a platform that I never thought would be there for me. But it's something that I feel is, it's helped me personally, first and foremost, because it's allowed me to kind of get some of these things off my chest. And I didn't mention earlier, but I'll come back to that. But um, it's allowed me to share, and it's also been impactful for others. And I've been amazed at the stories that people have come to me and told me, like, "Hey, we've read your book and we're having discussions about it." And it's humbling, it's inspiring that because of the things that I went through that um, deeply impacted me, and have quite frankly been painful for me. However, there's been purpose behind my pain. But I wanted to circle back to what you said earlier about people keeping things inside, and that's a major thing. Is that holding everything inside it's stress, and it's definitely causing people to die. Like you said, just to by not being able to share these things, and so it's very important to be able to share and express your feelings and don't bottle everything up, and just from the simple perspective of communicating these things. And because it's definitely not just from a mental perspective but from a literal physical situation to where it's negatively impacting the health of again men, because men just they silent killer, they don't talk. Stress is a silent killer, so that's why you don't hear too many women having heart attacks. I mean, of course, it happens, but it's something that's going to be a lot more prevalent in men. But because we just we are stressed, and we want to do what we can to kind of alleviate some of that stress.
Well, thank you for creating a path that people can walk down and do exactly that. Open up, release, allow their bodies and minds and relationships to thrive. I know that you know you did a great thing, but I know that you don't know what the magnitude of this will be. And when you plant a seed, obviously it if it's nurtured, it turns into something. And this could be something that lasts forever. Even if you impact one person and they pass that down to one another person, and that keeps happening, um, you will have impacted millions of people into the future, that people you will never see, people you won't even know exist. So you're doing something that's way greater than this conversation, and way greater than what you're even imagining this book could be. And also, I said this to you on the phone, I'm going to say it again: you have a great voice, and I would love to hear you narrate your book. So if the Audible thing wasn't on your mind, I'm definitely encouraging you to go that route. Listen, there's a market for it. There are women out here. And I discovered this in 2020. A friend of mine was telling me there's this group of men that read bedtime stories to women. Did you know about that?
No, I did not know about that.
It's a real thing. Like, they're literally reading women to sleep. And I was like, listen, 2020 happened and a lot of things came out of it. I now believe anything can happen. But I want to ask the audience a question right now. We're going to jump into another segment. Did you know? Did you know that according to the CDC, men die by suicide nearly 4 times more often than women, but are far less likely to seek mental health treatment? Did you know that? All right. So the next segment, I have a question, which is also for the audience. This is a question that you can answer by emailing me, talkwithnola@gmail, talkwithnola@gmail, or you can DM me your answer. The question is, what's a conversation you wish you had with your father or your brother or a partner, but never did? What's a conversation? You guys are always DMing me crazy stuff all the time, so it's time to now be vulnerable and DM me your answer. All right, so for the next segment, the SOA Q&A, my producer, Shot of Adrenaline, typically asks us introspective questions that we have to answer, but today I'm going to be doing the asking. I have those questions here, and these questions are for you, Peter. Are you
Okay,
ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. What's the most unconventional advice you've ever received that actually worked?
I feel like everybody's heard this, but it's just like, do it scared. That's it. Just just do it, really. It could be anything. Um, Go talk to that girl that you're afraid to talk to. Go apply for that job that you may feel like you're not qualified for. Write the book that you never thought you were gonna write. It's all kinds of different things, but just not waiting for the perfect time. Because I'm again use myself as a personal example that wanted to make sure the stars align perfectly and everything's all right. But no, just do it. Just put your foot forward and go for it.
Do it scared. I love that. What's one tradition or social norm you think future generations will completely abandon?
Oh, oh, oh. Oh, that's tough. I think I don't know. I guess it's a lot less. I guess physical interaction. When I mean like face to face, talk to everything. A lot. There's so much more things that are happening online. So I think just I don't know how to kind of categorize that, but just the face to face interaction is getting put on the back burner. So there's a lot more connectivity on social media and just doing things in that regard. And then now we throw in AI into the picture, so there's all kinds of stuff going on. So I think that definitely there's going to be a lot less just going out and meeting each other like that.
Yeah. If you could relive 1 year of your life without changing the outcome, which year would it be and why?
1 year of my life without changing the outcome. I would That's tough. That's a tough one right there. Um, but if I mean, that's the way it is because I can't change the outcome. So last year, 2024, it was a fantastic year for me personally. Um, I felt like it was the height of everything. It was from a professional perspective, a personal perspective, everything was just clicking on all cylinders. And so 2024, I had a big smile on my face for the majority of the year. So I think that was a great time for me.
Hey, I love that for you. All right, so let's get into today's happy habit. The reason why I think it's important to have this conversation about happy habits is because a lot of people tend to believe you're happy when something huge and magnificent is happening. And a lot of times we miss out on those seemingly small moments that we can accumulate and look back on or look to in the moment and realize that we are indeed having a joyful life. So, Peter, what is one thing that you either practice daily or you practice periodically that brings you joy?
Um, well, first and foremost, I've been doing a lot better at just starting my day just with a sense of gratitude, just waking up, thanking God for the fact that I did wake up. I'm in my right mind. I'm got all activities of my limbs, just taking in my surroundings and just thanking the Lord for the various blessings that He's given me. And so that's how I've been starting my day, taking a minute to reflect on different passages of Scripture, and then just doing what I can to be active as well. Because again, I definitely that's a big part of my life. Like I mentioned, I'm a professional bodybuilder, so just getting up, starting my day, going to the gym, doing some cardio, just getting my blood pumping, and to get started with the day. So those are some happy habits that I have. And cardio may not always be fun. I did an hour on the Stairmaster this morning, but I had to get through it. I had to get in my right mindset. So, but it's those things that kind of get me. Those are part of my habits that bring me joy.
Beautiful. I love it. And I hear you talking about taking care of your heart again. So, Conversations I Wish I Had, the Unspoken Stories of Men. That's your book. And where can people find it and where can people find you?
The book Conversations I Wish I Had, The Unspoken Stories of Men, is available exclusively on Amazon right now. It's available on paperback, hardcover, and Kindle version. And potentially we'll see about doing that Audible. So we'll work on that. But we can find it on Amazon. I can be found social media, Peter Burnett 1 on Instagram, Peter Burnett IFBB Pro on TikTok. Also, my coaching page for bodybuilding and fitness is Invictus Fitness. So those are the areas that I could be found on the internets.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for this awesome and super insightful conversation. I know for a fact, I am confident that this is going to help somebody. And that's really why we're here having these conversations about experiences that help us grow. So thank you so much. And
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to get on here with you and spend some time having a conversation with you.
awesome. And thanks to everybody who is either listening or watching. I love you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Nola Rowe Experience Podcast. Created and hosted by Nola Rowe. Produced by Take Action Media. Theme song by Mr. Melee. Sponsored by The Hills Restaurant, Brooklyn, New York. Listen to us on all podcast platforms and follow us on social media at the Nola Rowe Experience Podcast. Visit the NolaRoweExperiencePodcast.com and connect with us via email at talkwithnola@gmail.com.